The morning shift on Zora, the 7-star like any other day. The massive trade station floated quietly at the edge of known space, where dozens of alien species came by, sell, and make deals. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports every hour. The station's marketplace was always crowded with strange creatures, exotic goods, and the constant hum of universal translators working overtime. Ambassador Rebecca Morrison had visited stations like this countless times before. Her job was to meet with alien representatives, negotiate trade agreements, and keep Earth's relationships with other species running smoothly. It was boring work most days, filled with long meetings and endless paperwork. She brought her 7-year-old daughter, Lily, along for this trip because the girls' school was on break, and Rebecca didn't want to leave her alone back on Earth for 2 weeks. Lily Morrison was a curious child with bright eyes and an endless supply of questions. While her mother sat through another dull meeting about mining rights and shipping lanes, Lily explored the station's marketplace with her guardian droid, a sleek silver machine programmed to keep her safe. The marketplace fascinated her. She'd never seen so many different aliens in one place. There were tall ones with 6 arms, short ones covered in fur, and floating ones that glowed in the dark. She stopped at a stall run by a bird-like creature with brilliant blue and gold feathers. The alien was selling what looked like glass sculptures that changed colors when you touched them. The creature noticed Lily staring and chirped something friendly. The translator in Lily's ear turned it into words she could understand. "Would the young human like to see?" the alien asked gently. Lily nodded, reaching out to touch one of the sculptures. It felt warm and shifted from blue to purple under her small fingers. She giggled with delight. The bird-like alien, one of the Velther species, clicked his beak in what might have been a smile. His name was Kareth, and he'd been selling his handmade art at this station for 20 years. That's when everything went wrong. The explosion came without warning. A massive blast ripped through the station's eastern dock, sending a shock wave through the marketplace. Aliens scattered in every direction, screaming in dozens of languages. Lily's guardian droid immediately moved to protect her. But before it could react, a second explosion hit closer. Debris slammed into the droid, crushing its central processor. The machine sparked once and collapsed into a pile of useless metal. Lily screamed. People were running everywhere. Smoke filled the air. She couldn't see her mother anywhere. More explosions echoed through the station. Then she heard the sound that would haunt her nightmares for years to come, the heavy footsteps of armored boots hitting metal floors. The Krell Syndicate had come to Zora the 7. Everyone in this part of space knew about the Krell. They were slavers, pirates, and killers who raided peaceful stations to steal whatever they could carry. They took valuable cargo, weapons, and technology. But worst of all, they took people. Krell slavers sold captured aliens to the highest bidder, and they didn't care who they grabbed. Adults, children, it made no difference to them. 3 Krell soldiers appeared through the smoke, their dark armor making them look like walking nightmares. They were nearly 7 feet tall, covered head to toe in black combat gear. Their helmets had no faces, just blank reflective visors that showed Lily her own terrified reflection. One of them spotted her immediately. "Human child," one Krell growled, his voice distorted through his helmet. "Worth good money." Lily ran. Her small legs carried her as fast as they could through chaos. She ducked under falling debris and squeezed between panicking aliens. But the Krell were faster. They herded her like hunters driving prey, cutting off escape routes until she found herself trapped in a dead-end alley between 2 shops. Crates and cargo containers blocked the way behind her. There was nowhere left to go. The 3 Krell soldiers advanced slowly, knowing she was cornered. One of them pulled out restraints designed to hold prisoners. Lily pressed herself against the cold metal wall, tears streaming down her face. She wanted her mother. She wanted to be back home on Earth, safe in her own bed. Then something unexpected happened. 7 Velther merchants, including old Kareth from the sculpture stall, suddenly appeared between Lily and the Krell soldiers. They spread their colorful wings wide, completely hiding the little girl from view. The Velther weren't fighters. They were artists, merchants, and peaceful traders. They had no weapons, no armor, and no combat training whatsoever. But they stood firm anyway. "Move aside, birds," The lead Krell soldier commanded. "This doesn't concern you." "We will not," Kareth said quietly. His voice shook, but he didn't step back. The Krell soldier took another step forward. "Move, or we'll move you ourselves." "No," another Velthir said simply. The 7 bird-like aliens pressed closer together, their wings overlapping to form an unbroken barrier. They were trembling. They knew exactly what was about to happen, but not one of them moved aside. "Your choice," the Krell soldier said coldly. The sound of plasma weapons charging filled the alley. Lily, hiding behind the wall of feathers, heard Kareth whisper something in his own language. Later, translators would tell her what he'd said. "Protecting the innocent is the highest purpose." The Krell opened fire. The first volley of plasma bolts hit 4 Velthir instantly. They fell without a sound, their bright feathers turning dark with blood. The remaining 3, including Kareth, were badly wounded but still standing. Somehow, impossibly, they kept their wings spread wide. They refused to let the Krell reach the child behind them. "Still in the way, birds?" The Krell soldier sounded almost impressed. Kareth coughed, blue blood dripping from his beak. "Always," he managed to say. The Krell raised their weapons again. But before they could fire, station security finally arrived. Alarms blared. Armed guards in riot gear stormed into the alley. The Krell soldiers retreated quickly, knowing they couldn't fight the entire station security force. They disappeared back into the smoke and chaos, looking for easier targets. When the guards reached Lily, they found her physically unharmed but covered in alien blood. She was clutching Kareth's wing, crying. 6 Velthir lay dead around her. Only Kareth remained alive, barely breathing. Ambassador Morrison arrived moments later, having fought her way through the station's chaos to find her daughter. When she saw the scene, she fell to her knees beside Lily and pulled her close. Then she looked at the dying Velthir, who'd saved her child's life. "Why?" Rebecca whispered. "You didn't even know her." Kareth's eyes were fading, but he managed one last response before the medics took him away. She was a child who needed help. What other reason could there be? The video started simply. Ambassador Rebecca Morrison sat in her quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel, her face exhausted and eyes red from crying. Her daughter Lily was finally asleep in the next room after hours of nightmares. Rebecca had cleaned the alien blood from her hands, but she could still see the blue stains under her fingernails. She'd recorded and deleted this message 3 times already, but the story needed to be told. "My name is Rebecca Morrison," she began, her voice steady despite everything. 48 hours ago, my daughter was nearly taken by Krell slavers on Zora the 7. She would be gone right now, sold to whoever paid the most, if not for 7 strangers who chose to die rather than let that happen. She paused, gathering herself. These weren't soldiers. They weren't security personnel or bodyguards. They were merchants, artists, peaceful traders who'd never held a weapon in their lives. They were Velthir, a species I'd barely heard of before yesterday. And when armed slavers pointed guns at them and told them to move aside, they refused. Rebecca's voice cracked slightly. 6 of them died shielding my little girl with their own bodies. The 7th, an elderly shopkeeper named Kareth, is still in critical condition. The doctors say he'll survive, but he'll never walk properly again. He knew that might happen. They all knew, and they did it anyway. She leaned closer to the camera. We weren't allies with the Velthir. We had no treaty, no agreement, no reason for them to risk anything for us. They just saw a scared child and decided that was enough. I need everyone back home to understand what that means. These people gave everything for one of our own when they didn't have to. The video ended. Rebecca uploaded it to the public networks and went to check on Lily. She had no idea what she'd just started. The message reached Earth within hours. It spread through social media like a fire through dry grass. People shared it millions of times. News networks played it on repeat. Within a day, every human in the solar system had seen Ambassador Morrison's tear-stained face, describing how aliens they'd never heard of had died protecting a human child. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Protests erupted outside government buildings on Earth, Mars, and every human colony. But these weren't angry protests. People weren't demanding action or screaming for revenge. They were quiet gatherings where thousands stood in silence, holding candles and pictures of the 6 dead Velthir. Someone had found photos of them from before the attack, smiling at their market stalls, proud of their artwork and goods. One image went viral above all others. It showed Lily's small handprints in blue Velthir blood on the alley wall where she'd been cornered. Underneath, someone had written, "They didn't have to, but they did." The Terran Assembly, Earth's governing body, received more messages in 2 days than they'd gotten in the previous year. The content was almost always the same. People wanted to know what humanity was going to do for the species that had sacrificed so much for one of their children. President James Walker called an emergency session. He was a practical man, a former military officer who'd built his career on careful decisions and measured responses. He'd been in office for 3 years and had never called an emergency session before. This situation was different. The assembly chamber was packed. Every representative was present, along with military advisors, diplomatic staff, and media representatives. The usual political divisions that kept the assembly arguing for weeks over minor issues seemed to have vanished overnight. Walker could see it in their faces. Everyone wanted the same thing. "We all know why we're here," Walker began, his voice carrying through the silent chamber. 6 members of the Velthir species died protecting a human child. They weren't soldiers. They weren't obligated. They simply saw someone who needed help and refused to let evil win, even when it cost them everything. He pulled up the image of Lily's bloody handprints on the chamber's main screen. This child is alive because strangers cared more about doing what was right than about their own survival. The Velthir have shown us something we thought was rare in this galaxy: pure, selfless courage. A representative from the Mars colony stood. "What are you proposing, Mr. President?" Walker looked around the chamber. "I'm proposing we do something humanity has never done before. I'm proposing we declare the Velthir species under our permanent protection, not as subjects, not as servants, as people we have sworn to defend with every resource we possess." Another representative spoke up. "The Velthir aren't a military power. They have no strategic value. Protecting them could make us enemies with species that have exploited them for years." "Good," Walker said flatly. "Let me be clear about what I'm suggesting. Any attack on a Velthir, anywhere in the galaxy, will be treated as an attack on Earth itself. Any species that harms them will face the full weight of human military power. We will defend them as if they were our own people, because after what they did, they are our own people." The chamber erupted in discussion. Walker let them talk for exactly 2 minutes before calling for order. "This isn't about politics or strategy. This is about who we are as a species. Those Velthir could have walked away. They could have let the Krell take one human child and gone on with their lives. Instead, they chose to stand between evil and an innocent, knowing they'd die. If we don't honor that sacrifice, if we don't show the galaxy that such actions mean something to us, then we don't deserve to call ourselves civilized." The vote was called. It was the fastest unanimous decision in Assembly history. Not a single representative voted against it. 48 hours after Lily Morrison had been saved, President Walker stood before cameras broadcasting to the entire galaxy. His message was simple and absolute. The Velthir species is hereby declared under the eternal protection of humanity. Any act of aggression against any Velthir, anywhere, for any reason, will be considered an act of war against Earth and all human worlds. This protection is unconditional and permanent. The shield is raised. It will never be lowered. The decree sent shockwaves through galactic politics. Most alien species thought humans had lost their minds. The Velthir were nobodies, a minor species with no power or influence. Declaring eternal protection over them seemed insane. But humanity wasn't bluffing. Admiral Thomas Reed received his orders within the hour. He commanded the Third Fleet, humanity's most powerful naval force. His new assignment was simple: take every ship under his command to Velthir space and make it clear that the shield was real. 36 human warships appeared in orbit around the Velthir homeworld before the week was out. More ships deployed to every Velthir colony. Human engineers began installing defense platforms. Diplomats fast-tracked trade agreements that heavily favored Velther merchants. The Velther themselves were overwhelmed. Their entire population was only 3 billion spread across 14 worlds. They'd always been small, peaceful, and overlooked. Now the most powerful military force in their region of space had declared them untouchable. Kareth, still recovering in a hospital on Zora the 7, received a personal message from President Walker. It was short. You gave everything for one of ours. Now we give everything for all of yours. Thank you for showing us what courage really means. The galaxy watched and waited to see if humanity truly meant what they'd said. They wouldn't have to wait long. 3 months had passed since humanity declared the Velther under their protection. In that time, the galaxy had been talking. Some species admired humanity's loyalty. Others thought they were fools. But most figured the Shield decree was just words, empty promises made in an emotional moment that would fade when the cost became real. The Krell Syndicate was among the doubters. They'd been raiding and extorting weaker species for centuries. The incident on Zora the 7 had cost them 3 soldiers, but they'd escaped with plenty of loot from other parts of the station. To them, it was just business as usual. The fact that some bird people had died protecting a human kid meant nothing. The Krell didn't understand sacrifice. They only understood profit and power. Commander Vex of the Krell Syndicate was a practical creature. He'd been running protection rackets in this sector for 15 years. Every few months, he'd visit the Velther colonies with his fleet and demand tribute, credits, precious metals, art, whatever they had of value. The Velther always paid because they had no military and no allies. It was easy money. When he heard about Earth's Shield decree, Vex laughed. Humans were relative newcomers to galactic politics. They'd only been traveling between stars for about 80 years. Sure, they'd won a few small conflicts, but declaring eternal protection over another species? That was the kind of promise you made when you didn't understand how expensive it would be to keep. Vex decided it was time to remind the Velther who really ran this sector. He assembled 17 warships, more than enough firepower to flatten a Velther colony if needed. His target was Singing Wind, a peaceful settlement on the 4th moon of a gas giant. About 2 million Velther lived there, mostly farmers and artists. They'd always paid their tribute on time before. The Krell fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Singing Wind system. Vex immediately noticed something different. There were ships in orbit around the moon. Human ships. 2 destroyers and a supply vessel, just sitting there like they belonged. Vex felt a flicker of annoyance, but nothing more. 3 human ships against 17 Krell warships? The humans would run the moment things got serious. He opened a communication channel to the Velther governor's office. This is Commander Vex of the Krell Syndicate. You owe us tribute for this quarter. We're here to collect. There was a long pause. Then Governor Theron, an elderly Velther administrator, appeared on screen. He looked nervous but determined. Commander Vex, our circumstances have changed. We are now under protection of Earth. We no longer pay tribute to anyone. Vex actually laughed out loud. Several of his bridge crew joined in. Protection? From the humans? Governor, let me explain reality to you. I have 17 warships. They have 3. Tell them to leave, or we'll go through them to get to you. I cannot do that, Theron said quietly. We are shielded now. Then you've chosen poorly, Vex replied. He switched channels to address the human ships. Human vessels, this is Krell Commander Vex. You are interfering in established business arrangements. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The response came from the lead human destroyer. A woman's voice, calm and cold as deep space. This is Admiral Rachel Foster of the Terran Defense Fleet. The Velther colony of Singing Wind is under Earth's protection. You will power down your weapons and leave the system immediately. Vex couldn't believe what he was hearing. This human admiral was actually threatening him? Admiral, I don't think you understand the situation. I have 17 warships. You have 3. Basic math says you lose. Commander Vex, Admiral Foster replied, you have 10 seconds to comply. Power down your weapons and withdraw. This is your only warning. 10, 9, 8. She was counting down like he was some disobedient child. Vex felt his temper rising. This human needed to learn respect. All ships, target those human vessels. Prepare to fire on my mark. 7, 6, 5. Vex tactical officer spoke up nervously. Commander, our sensors are picking up something strange. There are energy signatures near those human ships that don't match anything in our database. 4, 3, 2. It's probably just sensor ghosts, Vex said dismissively. Fire. His fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, and particle beams all launched at once toward the 3 human ships. It was enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. The human vessels would be gone in seconds. Then everything went wrong. 3 massive shapes appeared out of nowhere, materializing between the Krell fleet and the human destroyers. They'd been there the whole time, hidden by cloaking technology the Krell had never seen before. Human dreadnoughts, each one twice the size of Vex's flagship. Their shields absorbed the Krell attack, without even flickering. Admiral Foster's voice came through again, no longer counting, just stating facts. You fired on a shielded world. That was a mistake. The human dreadnoughts opened fire. Vex had been in space combat for 30 years. He fought rival pirate fleets, planetary defense forces, and corporate security ships. He knew what space battles looked like. This wasn't a battle. This was an execution. The human weapons were unlike anything he'd encountered. Their targeting was perfect. Every shot hit exactly where it needed to. Krell shield that should have held for minutes collapsed in seconds. Armor that could withstand sustained fire was punched through like paper. The humans weren't trying to disable ships or force surrenders. They were systematically destroying everything in their path. Vex tactical officer was screaming updates that made no sense. 7 ships destroyed. 9 ships. 11. Commander, their weapons are cutting through our shields like they're not even there. Evasive maneuvers. Vex shouted. Return fire. But there was nowhere to evade to. The human ships moved with impossible precision, always staying at optimal firing range. Their point defense systems shot down every missile the Krell launched. Their own weapons never missed. Vex watched ship after ship on his tactical display blink out of existence, reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The entire engagement lasted 90 seconds from the first shot to the last. 17 Krell warships had entered the Singing Wind system. 16 of them were now scrap metal tumbling through space. Only Vex's flagship remained, and that was only because the humans had deliberately spared it. His shields were down, his weapons offline, and his engines dead. The ship was a floating coffin, kept alive only by enemy mercy. Admiral Foster's face appeared on his screen. She looked disappointed rather than triumphant, like a teacher who'd hoped a student would make better choices. Commander Vex, I'm allowing you to live for one reason. You're going to deliver a message to your superiors and to anyone else in this galaxy who thinks the shield is a joke. She leaned closer to her camera. We did not make the shield decree lightly. When we say a species is under our protection, we mean it absolutely. The Velther are now as much our responsibility as any human colony. An attack on them is an attack on us. And as you just learned, attacking us is fatal. Vex's ship shuddered as a human boarding craft attached to his hull. Marines would be coming to collect him and his surviving crew. They'd be taken prisoner, tried for their attempted attack, and probably spend the rest of their lives in a detention facility. Your ship's escape pod bay is still functional, Foster continued. I'm giving you 30 seconds to get yourself and any survivors into a pod. The pod will be equipped with a long-range transmitter. Use it to send this message to every Krell base, every pirate haven, and every species that's ever profited from exploiting the weak. She paused, making sure he was paying attention. The shield is not a bluff. It is not negotiable. It is not something we will back down from no matter what threats you make or how many ships you bring. Touch a Velther anywhere in this galaxy, and what happened here will look merciful by comparison. This is the only warning anyone gets. Vex didn't argue. He couldn't. His entire fleet was gone, destroyed in less time than it took to drink a cup of coffee. He gathered a surviving crew and made it to the escape pod. As they ejected from the dying flagship, he watched through the viewport as the human dreadnoughts turned his ship into vapor with a final sustained barrage. The escape pod's transmitter activated automatically. Admiral Foster had already programmed the message into it. Her voice broadcast across every communication frequency the Krell used. The Terran Defense Fleet protects its own. The Velther are our own. Test us again at your extinction. In the Singing Wind colony below, Governor Theron watched the orbital battle through telescopes. When it was over, he activated his communication channel to the human ships. His voice shook with emotion. Admiral Foster, we cannot adequately express our gratitude. You came. You actually came. Governor, Foster replied warmly, we made a promise. Humans keep their promises. Always. The news of what happened at Singing Wind spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Commander Vex's escape pod broadcast reached every corner of Krell space within hours. 17 warships destroyed in 90 seconds. The footage from a colony's satellites showed the battle in brutal detail. The Krell fleet hadn't just lost. They'd been erased. Emperor Thrak of the Krell Empire watched the footage 3 times in his throne room. He was old by Krell standards, nearly 200 years, and he'd built his empire through fear and ruthless efficiency. For decades, the Krell had raided weaker species with impunity. They took what they wanted because no one could stop them. The Krell military consisted of over 4,000 warships spread across dozens of sectors. And now these humans, these newcomers who'd only been in space for less than a century, had humiliated his forces over some worthless bird people. Thrax summoned his war council immediately. The chamber filled with his most experienced commanders, admirals who'd conquered entire star systems. They gathered around a holographic display showing Krell territory and the location of human space. Opinions, Thrak growled. Admiral Kron spoke first. He was Thrak's most trusted military advisor, a veteran of 50 campaigns. My emperor, the humans got lucky. Vex was overconfident and walked into an ambush. Yes, their technology seems advanced, but they're still a small species. We have the numbers. We crush them. Another commander agreed. We cannot let this insult stand. If we don't respond, every species we've ever conquered will think we're weak. The entire empire could collapse. Thrak nodded slowly. Pride demanded a response. The Krell reputation was built on the understanding that you didn't cross them without facing consequences. If they let humanity embarrass them without retaliation, their entire system control would crumble. Begin mobilization, Thrak ordered. I want every available ship ready for war. We're going to teach these humans what happens when you interfere with Krell business. Within hours, the Krell Empire declared a state of war. Battle fleets from across their territory began moving toward human space. The mobilization was massive. 2,000 warships, representing half the Krell military might, would converge on Earth's colonies. It was the largest military operation the Krell had launched in a century. The galactic community watched with a mixture of fascination and horror. Most thought humanity had made a fatal mistake. The Krell were one of the major powers in this region of space. Going to war with them over a species as insignificant as the Velther seemed suicidal. Surely Earth would back down now, apologize, and try to negotiate peace. They were wrong. Earth's response came from Secretary of Defense Michael Thompson. He was a former fleet commander himself, a man who'd spent 40 years in military service before taking a political position. He stood in front of cameras at the Pentagon, wearing his old uniform, and delivered humanity's message to the Krell Empire. His face was expressionless, his voice flat and matter-of-fact. The Krell Empire has 72 hours to comply with the following terms. 1. All Krell forces will immediately withdraw from any system containing a Velther presence. 2. The Krell will pay full reparations to the families of the ships destroyed at Singing Wind. 3. Emperor Thrak will issue a formal apology to the Velther species and to Earth. Thompson paused, letting that sink in. If these terms are not met within 72 hours, the Terran Defense Fleet will consider the Krell Empire a hostile entity and respond accordingly. Let me be clear about what that means. We will not negotiate. We will not accept partial compliance. You either meet all 3 conditions, or you face the consequences. The broadcast ended. No threats, no dramatic speeches, just a simple ultimatum delivered like someone reading a grocery list. Emperor Thrak watched the human statement and laughed until his sides hurt. Apologize? Pay reparations? These humans have lost their minds. He immediately broadcast his own response across galactic channels. The Krell Empire does not apologize, Thrak declared, his voice full of contempt. We do not pay reparations. And we certainly don't take orders from a species that's barely learned to leave their own planet. You want war, humans? You'll get war. My fleets are already moving. We're going to burn your colonies to ash and sell your children in the same slave markets where you should have let us take that one brat 3 months ago. His admirals cheered. The Krell military went into overdrive. Their armadas accelerated toward human territory. According to their calculations, they'd reach the outer human colonies in 4 days. The war would be over in a week. Humanity's response came 68 hours before the deadline expired. A single human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Krell home system. Not a fleet, not an invasion force. One ship, the TDFS Retribution, a heavy cruiser under command of Captain Jennifer Barnes. She was young for a capital ship commander, only 38, but she'd earned her position through exceptional skill and ice-cold nerves. The Krell home system was the beating heart of their empire. Their capital world held 5 billion Krell citizens. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet in layers. 300 warships were stationed there permanently, protecting the Emperor and the government. It was the most heavily defended location in Krell space. Captain Barnes entered the system alone. The Krell defenders immediately detected her ship. Alarms blared across every military installation. How had one human vessel gotten past their border patrols? Where was the rest of the invasion fleet? Admiral Krant, commanding the home fleet, opened a channel to the human ship. Attention, human vessel. You have entered Krell's sovereign space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Captain Barnes appeared on screen. She looked tired, like someone who'd been awake too long dealing with annoying problems. This is Captain Barnes of the Terran Defense Fleet. I'm here to deliver a message to Emperor Thrak. You have 4 hours to evacuate all military personnel from your orbital installations. After that, I'm going to destroy them. The Krell officers couldn't believe what they were hearing. One ship threatening to destroy the most defended system in their empire? Krant assumed she was insane. Captain, you're outnumbered 300 to 1. This is suicide. No, Barnes corrected him calmly. This is a demonstration. You have 4 hours. I suggest you use them wisely. Timer starts now. She cut the connection. The Retribution didn't move, just sat there in space like it had all the time in the world. Emperor Thrak was brought the news immediately. His initial rage gave way to confusion. What was this human thinking? Did she really believe one ship could threaten his homeworld? Destroy it, he ordered. I want that ship turned to atoms. Admiral Krant sent 50 warships to engage the Retribution. They surrounded it, weapons locked on. Barnes didn't even try to run. When they opened fire, her shields held easily. Then she fired back. What happened next would be analyzed by military academies across the galaxy for generations. The Retribution moved through the Krell defenders like a knife through water. Her weapons cut through their shields and armor with terrifying efficiency. Her point defense system shot down every incoming missile. Her engines let her dance around return fire with impossible grace. In 20 minutes, all 50 Krell ships were destroyed. The Retribution hadn't taken a single hit. Captain Barnes broadcast again. 3 hours and 40 minutes remaining. I strongly recommend evacuating those installations. This time, Krant listened. He ordered all personnel off the orbital platforms. Better lose the equipment than thousands of lives. The Krell military began a chaotic evacuation, while the Retribution waited patiently. When the 4 hours expired, Barnes kept her promise. Her ship methodically destroyed every military installation in orbit around the Krell homeworld. Weapons platforms, shipyards, supply depots, communication arrays. Everything that had military value was reduced to debris. The destruction was surgical and precise. Not one weapon hit the planet below. Not one civilian installation was touched. In 4 hours, Captain Barnes dismantled the Krell Empire's most defended system while their fleet watched helplessly. Every time they sent ships to stop her, those ships were destroyed. The retribution was untouchable. When she finished, Barnes broadcast one final message. This one went to every Krell frequency, every ship, every station, and directly to Emperor Thrax's throne room. Your military infrastructure in this system is gone. Your shipyards are destroyed. Your defenders are dead. And I did this alone. She leaned forward, making sure the camera caught her expression. You have 68 hours remaining on Secretary Thompson's deadline. If you don't comply, I won't be alone next time. The entire Terran Defense Fleet will visit every Krell system simultaneously. We won't destroy your military installations. We'll destroy your worlds. She paused. This isn't a bluff. This isn't posturing. This is us showing you what we're capable of. You picked a fight over people we've sworn to protect. That was your mistake. End this while you still can. The transmission ended. The retribution jumped back to faster-than-light travel and vanished, leaving behind a debris field and a shattered Krell defense network. Emperor Thrax sat in his throne room, staring at the damage reports. One human ship had done in hours what should have been impossible. If that was what one ship could do, what could their entire fleet accomplish? His pride wanted to continue the war. But pride wouldn't matter if his entire species was wiped out. 12 hours before Earth's deadline expired, Emperor Thrax issued a galaxy-wide broadcast. His voice shook with barely contained rage, but he said the words anyway. The Krell Empire withdraws all claims to Velther space. We will pay the requested reparations. And he forced the words out. We apologize for our actions against the Velther and humanity. The war was over before it began. A year had passed since the Krell Empire surrendered. The galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. The Velther, who'd once been ignored by everyone, now traveled wherever they wanted without fear. Their distinctive blue and gold feathers became a symbol of something important. When pirates saw a Velther merchant ship, they didn't attack. They fled. When Velther diplomats arrived at trade negotiations, powerful empires competed to give them favorable deals. Everyone knew why. Behind every Velther stood humanity, and humanity had proven they meant what they said about protection. The shield wasn't empty words or political theater. It was real, absolute, and terrified anyone foolish enough to test it. Velther merchants began putting small Earth flags on their ships alongside their own. It wasn't required, but they did it anyway. Some humans found it touching. Others thought it was unnecessary. The Velther did it because they wanted everyone to remember who had stood up for them when no one else would. But something unexpected started happening about 6 months after Krell incident. Other species began noticing something about humans. Something that explained why they'd gone to war over 7 bird people dying to protect a child. It started on a mining station called Deep Rock 7. A fire broke out in the residential section due to a faulty power coupling. The station's emergency systems failed, and flames spread faster than containment protocols could handle. People were running for escape pods, trying to get off the station before the fire reached the fuel reserves. A human teenager named Danny Cooper got separated from his family in the chaos. He was 16, on his way back to Earth after visiting his dad, who worked on the station. The smoke was too thick to see through. Danny stumbled blindly down corridors, trying to find an escape route. He ended up trapped in a dead-end hallway with the fire, closing in from both directions. A Krithian warrior named Drax was also evacuating. The Krithians were a species known for their strength and combat prowess. They hired themselves out as mercenaries and security personnel across the galaxy. Drax stood 7 feet tall, covered in thick armor-like skin that could deflect most small arms fire. He was practically indestructible. Drax found Danny in that hallway, coughing on smoke and backed against a wall. The Krithian could have kept running. His own escape pod was 1 corridor away. He could have made it easily. Instead, he looked at the scared human teenager and made a choice. Drax wrapped his massive arms around Danny and charged through the wall of flames. His armored skin protected him from most of the heat, but fire that intense could kill even a Crithian given enough exposure. He made it through the first section, then the second. By the third wall of flames, Drax's skin was burning. He was dying, but he didn't stop running until he'd shoved Danny into an escape pod with other survivors. "Go," Drax told him, his voice rough with pain. "Launch now." The pod launched. Drax collapsed in the corridor, his body too damaged to continue. The rescue teams found him there an hour later when they got the fire under control. He'd saved 15 people by holding that corridor open, but it had cost him everything. The story reached Earth within days. President Walker himself attended Drax's funeral. The Crithian's clan was confused. Why was the human leader here? Drax was a mercenary, a hired gun who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Walker explained it simply. "Your warrior saw one of our children in danger and gave his life to save him. In human culture, there is no greater sacrifice. We honor those who protect the innocent above all others." Then Walker made an announcement that shocked the Crithian clan. By order of the Terran Assembly, the Crithian species is hereby declared under Earth's shield. You protected one of ours. Now you are one of ours. Forever. The Crithian clan didn't know what to say. They were warriors, proud and independent. They'd never needed anyone's protection before. But they understood what humanity was really offering. Not protection because the Crithians were weak, but partnership because they'd proven they shared humanity's values. 3 weeks after that, another incident occurred. A cargo hauler's cargo broke loose near a civilian space station. Huge metal containers tumbled through space toward the station's external marketplace, where hundreds of people were shopping. An alien mother named Thesha, of the insectoid Chitara species, saw a human child directly in the path of falling debris. Thesha had 3 children of her own nearby. She could have grabbed them and run to safety. Instead, she threw herself over the human child, using her own chitinous body as a shield. The containers crushed her exoskeleton, but the human child underneath survived with only minor injuries. Thesha lived, but barely. She never walked properly again. When human doctors asked her why she'd done it, her answer was simple through the translator. "I am a mother. She was a child. What else would I do?" The Chitara species found themselves under Earth's shield within the week. Then it happened again, and again. A Voranian pilot crashed his ship into an asteroid to change its course away from a human colony ship, dying in the process. An elderly Manarian scholar threw himself in front of a human girl during a robbery, taking the shot meant for her. A Kelvin construction worker held up a collapsing building long enough for human children to escape a school, crushing himself in the process. Every single time, humanity responded the same way. You protected one of ours. Now you are one of ours. The shield expanded, first to 5 species, then 10, then 20. Each time, it was because someone had risked or given their life to protect a human, usually a human child. The galaxy began to understand something fundamental about humanity. They didn't value strength or technology or strategic advantage. They valued the willingness to protect the innocent. Other species started to notice a pattern. Every species under Earth's shield had one thing in common. They'd all demonstrated what humans called moral courage. The willingness to do what was right even when it was dangerous or costly. Some species tried to fake it, staging rescues to get under humanity's protection. Earth saw through those immediately and publicly called them out. The shield wasn't something you could manipulate your way into. It had to be earned through genuine sacrifice. A year after the incident, on Zora the 7, a memorial ceremony was held on that very station. It had been rebuilt after the Krell attack, bigger and better than before. The ceremony took place in the marketplace, where 7 Velthir had died protecting a child. Rebecca Morrison was there, but she wasn't ambassador anymore. She was now Earth Secretary of Defense, replacing Michael Thompson, who'd retired. She stood in front of a new monument, a beautiful sculpture showing 7 Velthir with their wings spread in protection. At the base were their names and a simple inscription. They gave everything for a stranger's child. Karess stood beside her. The old Velthir merchant walked with a cane now, his legs never fully recovering from his injuries. But he was alive, and he'd insisted on being present for the unveiling. Rebecca's daughter Lily was there too, now 8 years old. She'd grown a lot in the past year. The nightmares had faded. She'd even learned some of the Velther language, so she could talk to Kareth without relying on translators all the time. The ceremony drew thousands. Velther from across their worlds came to honor the fallen. But they weren't alone. Representatives from every species under the shield attended. Crithian warriors stood beside Chitera mothers. Voranian pilots spoke with Manarian scholars. Dozens of species that had nothing in common except one thing. They'd all proven they valued protecting innocence over their own safety. Rebecca gave a speech, but kept it short. A year ago, 7 people died in this marketplace. They weren't soldiers. They weren't heroes in the traditional sense. They were merchants and artists who saw someone who needed help and refused to look away. Their sacrifice changed everything, not just for the Velther, but for how humanity sees our place in this galaxy. She gestured to the assembled crowd. Every species here has shown us the same thing those 7 Velthers showed us, that protecting the innocent isn't about being strong enough to fight. It's about being brave enough to care. That's what the shield represents. Not military power, but a promise. If you stand up for those who can't protect themselves, we'll stand up for you. Always. After the speeches, Lily approached Kareth. She'd been wanting to ask him something for a year, but had never found the right words. She looked up at the old Velther, barely reaching his chest even though he was hunched over his cane. Kareth, she asked quietly, why did you do it? You didn't know me. You didn't know us anything. Why did you and the others stand between me and those bad people when you knew they'd kill you? Karetha's beak clicked softly, the Velther equivalent of a gentle smile. He knelt down slowly. Bringing himself to her, I leveled despite the pain it caused his damaged legs. When he spoke, his voice was warm and certain. Little one, you were a child in danger, and we could help. What other reason could there ever be? Lily thought about that for a moment, then hugged him carefully. Karetha's wings spread slightly, instinctively protective even now. Above them, visible through the station's transparent dome, dozens of ships orbited. Human dreadnoughts flew alongside Velther merchants, Crithian warships, Chitera colony ships, and vessels from every shielded species. They flew together not because they'd been conquered or forced, but because they'd chosen to stand together. The galaxy had entered a new era, not one of empire or domination, but one of protection. Humanity had taught the universe a simple lesson. The strong exist to protect the weak, and those who embrace that truth will never stand alone. The shield was forever, and it was growing.